guys, talking baseball, we're talking about a struggling baseball team right now. The Red Sox just totally in control a couple weeks ago, and here they are fighting for their playoff lives.
Yeah, they are, and I'll tell you what, it's about time this team gets over what did not happen at the trade deadline, okay? They need to get over and play better baseball, but that doesn't mean I have to get over it, and I'm still pissed off.
I'm with you, Lou, and you know what? There's one player who came here at the trade deadline who was involved in a play that I think perfectly encapsulates everything that went wrong the last 10 days.
We might even be a little positive, too. Believe that or not, he's talking baseball, and it starts right now.
Talkin Baseball is presented by Twin River Casino Hotel. So much more, so close.
Oh, yet another bad week for the Red Sox. They finished off their 10-game road trip by losing 2 of 3 in Detroit and then 3 of 4 in Toronto, and several of those losses in particularly excruciating fashion. Red Sox, who just 2 weeks ago had the best record in the AL. They're now 2-9 in their last 11 games, and they trail the Rays by 4 games in the race for the AL East. The road ahead is presented by Twin River Casino Hotel. Bad time for the Sox to be in that slump. They are just 10-13 since the All-Star break, which actually sounds pretty good, right? 10-13 compared to what we've seen. The Yankees and Rays, meanwhile, tied for the best record in the AL since the break, with the Blue Jays just a half game behind them. It's Talkin Baseball, presented by Twin River Casino Hotel. I'm Tom Giles, Lou Merloni, John Tomase. We've got plenty to get to. It's plenty to get off our chests as far as this goes. I almost look at it and say they won a game in Toronto. I thought after they lost the opener with Nathan Eovaldi on the mound, I thought, you know what? They could easily go out there and get swept in that 4-game series. But where we're at right now, how are you feeling about things?
Yeah, and yet they win that game, and then you say, all right, now you get a split. Now things are settling down. Oh, hey, look, you're up 7-2. In the clincher. This is good. You can come home and pot. Nope, it gets blown up. And I'm sorry, you could see that coming. The way the last 11 games have gone, you could see that coming on Sunday night. George Springer, boom.
Yeah, and I think Sunday, really, we talk about that bullpen. It just seemed like he was stretched. You know, just everything seemed too much. I think Taylor screwed that game up in the 6th by not giving you an inning. And then you're stretching Sauer more. He now looks like he's hurt. Ottavino, you asked a lot from in Barnes. Doubleheader, he pitched them both on Saturday, and he just... Nothing was working there, but I'll say this, as bad as it was on Sunday, I still think there were some positives to that lineup. Because you need to get Verdugo got going before you lost him on Sunday. J.D., Devers, Bogarts. There was a lot of good swings in that game, which is really the reason the last 10 games or so has gone south.
Yeah.
They haven't been able to score, right? So day off, I don't know. Figure this damn thing out, right? But I think the offense, was a good sign on Sunday.
I look at this, though, too, and we've talked about this with this team time and time again this year. Okay, they're very good at just kind of snapping their fingers and saying, no, we're going to get refocused. We're going to start winning games again because they're resilient, because they love it when we start to doubt them. Are they at a point right now where there's almost too much pressure, where they've got no room to play with?
Yeah, I don't know that it's pressure so much. I go back to what Lou said. The bullpen looked gassed, right? Mm-hmm. And this team has looked gassed for a while, and we're going to get to the trade deadline. It's the story that won't go away because we won't let it, but we shouldn't let it. And you look at where they were, what they needed. They did not get help. Those guys were going on fumes from top to bottom. You're talking about the superstar hitters. You're talking about a pitching staff that can't give you more than 4 innings to start. You're talking about a bullpen that's been wearing it. And the fact that they got nothing, I think those two things combined to just deflate the team. And that's what we've been looking at for 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I think especially offensively. I mean, you got to point to that. I mean, we know the numbers, where they stand. I think they're last in baseball, man on third, less than 2 outs. And the last 10 days or so has just been pathetic. You know, they're unable to score at all. And I think it was a combination, as you mentioned it, really disappointed, deflated that weekend against Tampa Bay, then trying to figure it out, but almost putting too much pressure on yourself to be that guy to figure it out. And I always said, you come to the plate with a man on third base and your team is struggling. Now it plays game in your head. You're trying to do too much. You swing at the first pitch. It's 0-1 instead of 1-0 because it's out of the zone. You chase balls in. You jam yourself. You're up. The more you try to drive a guy in sometimes at the plate, the less successful you are because you're actually trying to do too much. So I think there was a snowball effect all week long. And that's why I say Sunday, they got to get the bats going, and they got the right ones going on Sunday, but they got to turn it around.
They also, I think, were trying too hard on the base paths at times as well. You had a couple of base running mistakes. Maybe that's even happening on the mound. But You got plenty to choose from, but let me lob this out there. Most frustrating loss from the last week. Lou, I'll start with you.
It wasn't Sunday, and I know that was just a kick in the balls. I mean, if I can say that, I don't even know. But it wasn't Sunday because I feel like there were some good things. Your best relievers let you down, maybe because it's gassed. It was Thursday in Detroit. 8-1. Martin, after Erod goes, 5 innings still, scoreless. You win a big ball game out there in Detroit, 4-1. He comes out and gives you an inning and a third. And that team looked dead. Dead baseball. It was singles to the outfield. They're hustling for second base. You're lollygagging out there in the outfield. They're going first to third. Guys are taking extra bases left and right. They tried harder than you. That Thursday game pissed me off more than any of them.
I would just say, because, John, we did the Boston Sports Tonight that night. It felt like Detroit was the playoff team in that game, and the Red Sox were the ones that were just playing out the rest of the schedule. Your most frustrating loss.
Yeah, and I mean, Detroit's been a better team than the Red Sox for the whole month, Right. So we shouldn't lose sight of that either. For me, it's not so much a loss, it's a moment. It's that first game in Toronto where Evaldi gets his doors blown off. They blow a 2-0 lead. Next thing you know, it's 9-2. And good old Hansel Robles is in the game, your big, reliever that you acquired at the deadline. And even though we all looked at it and said, well, his ERA is 6. It looks like he's not very good. Maybe the Red Sox know something we don't. What we see is not only does Robles come in and give it up, he hits Grichuk. Now you've got dugouts getting a little tense. There's warnings. He starts, yammering at the Jays dugout. And it's like, who are you? What are you doing? You just got here. In a different circumstance, with a guy who's been on the team all year, you say, you know what? I kind of would like to see this. I think this team might need a fight. Hansel Robles, you're coming off like some of the crazy relievers we've had in the past. Alfredo Aceves, that's not your place. And then he goes back on the mound and gives it up to Springer. Now the game is officially over. I just thought that moment encapsulated Bloom. You picked the wrong guy. And you put him in a game, and he's trying to start a fight, not for his team, but for himself. That was terrible.
When he's on the mound, he kind of has the demeanor of Oogie Urbina. When I watch him pitch, I kind of think about
just
the
crazy.
same thing.
Yeah, hide the machete.
And I wasn't crazy about it either, but I was hoping that Toronto took the bait. I was hoping that Robbie Ray came out and did something stupid, right? Like drill Bogey or drill Devers, because this team needed a wake-up call.
They were laughing at him, though. They weren't angry. They were laughing at him.
I get it, but nothing will piss you off more than 97 in the ribs. And then maybe you would have got emotion out of this Red Sox team. But Toronto did the right thing. They didn't do anything stupid. They didn't want to wake them up. But I'm with you. I didn't like it, but I was thinking, well, this might not be a bad time for it.
You brought up Chaim Bloom, Tomase. And by the way, the worst loss, you could take any one of those. Those two, bother me so much in particular. That's why I think Sunday was almost kind of like laugh out loud, that kind of loss, the way they blew that lead. But you brought up Chaim Bloom. How much blame does the Red Sox president of baseball operations, how much blame does he deserve for what's happening right now?
I'm going to hand the floor to Lou in just 1 second. But I will say very quickly, I reacted to the trade deadline as ownership did not let Chaim Bloom spend. And the more I've thought about it, the more I think we are letting him off the hook because, Brian Cashman was not allowed to spend, and he found ways to get players. Now, other teams had to pay for them. Maybe he had to give up a little bit more. But, Lou, I just feel like when we say it's on ownership, we're letting Bloom off the hook.
Oh, absolutely. I speak as a former player in a locker room. And I would be disgusted when I hear my general manager, chief baseball operator, say that we're not going to do anything contradictory to our goals and start talking about the CBT. Because all I'm hearing is that we are not worth it. We are not good. For 4 months, we have busted our ass. And what is the goal? Because my goal is to win and get to the playoffs. Alex Cora's goal is to win and get to the playoffs. And you're telling me that that's not the goal anymore. You can't build a farm system overnight. I need a first baseman. You get me an outfielder. DH. I need help in this rotation. You give me 2 broken arms out in the bullpen. You give me the 7th or 8th best arm out in the pen in Robles because he's got good stuff, and a kid in Austin Davis who wouldn't even be here if Darwinson was healthy. It did absolutely nothing. And you don't want to spend prospects for a rental? Good. Well, you did, but you didn't get 8 weeks of this guy. You got 4. And I don't know when the hell Schwarber's going to come back. And when he does, you think Alex Cora is going to put a guy with a sore hamstring and a tight groin at first base and learn how to play first? That ain't happening. The man's going to DH, and JD's going to be out in left field an awful lot. And that's great. You added a bat, but was it a fit? I don't think so. I think you dropped the ball.
You made another point I heard earlier today on the radio that if you're a player also, how should you feel about the fact that they don't want to give up a guy who's playing in Double-A or Single-A? But I'm saying if you're a player, you're like, I don't care about that Single-A player, that Double-A player. He hasn't proven anything. He's not here yet. So players look at it and say, go ahead, trade whoever you have to in the system. Those guys eventually are the ones just trying to take our jobs anyway.
Yeah, for every Rafi Devers, there's 14 guys that you think are good that never make it. You think Major League clubhouses don't care about prospects in the A-ball and AA. They care about their team. They care about the major leagues. Wins there. That should always be the priority. That should always be the goal. I'm not saying you unload the whole farm system, but if you give up 2 or 3 prospects, and we don't know if any of these kids can play, how great would it have been if you actually talked to your fan base and said, listen, we signed Pilar last year. We brought Mitch Moreland back. And you know what we did with the prospects that we got for 3 months and a horrible year for them? We actually went out there and got Anthony Rizzo and gave our team a chance to win in the playoffs. Well, we got a better arm than Robles. You could have spun that very easily. But instead, you want to hoard these guys. I don't even know if they can play.
I want to ask you real quick, Tomase. And some people are going to look at it this way. You know what? Hey, they didn't go out there, they didn't spend at the deadline, but the players on the field aren't exactly proving that they're worthy of it at this point.
That is, I hate that argument more than any other one about this. It's like you waited. They only started showing you that they aren't good when you did nothing for them. On the day of the trade deadline, had that team done enough to justify reinforcements? The answer, without question, is yes.